Hey, everybody out there, how's it going? And welcome to another installment of The State of Joe. I'm Joe Santiago. Some of the things President elect, as far as we know it, Joe Biden said during his speech on Saturday, November 7th, and also Vice President elect Harris made a speech. Now, I will admit that this is precisely how God usually operates. He has a sneaky way of being the god of surprises. He'll give you crisis after crisis. The odds will be stacked way up against us in life's situations we find ourselves in. And we say to ourselves, all right, a lot of negative, crazy things are happening all around us every day. Throughout the whole world, we say to ourselves, it can't get any worse. Then, when we think we've reached our threshold for these human problems that synchronistically keeps piling up, but just remember, God never gives us too much to bear. He will guide us through. Now, it completely makes sense that God would put an older man in office and a calmer and more reasonable man in office. But of course, he is also the god of excitement. So he's going to have an emergency going on over here, an amazingly good thing going on over there, and whatever is going on over there looks like just another dumpster fire. All to keep us in wonderment and anticipation of what he has up his everlasting sleeve for us next. Sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Don't think that this fight from Trump and Trump supporters to say we had a fraudulent election is just going to end and just be fraudulently opposed to what changes the new administration will implement. That's the big problem, is when it's all said and done, we will still have in the populace the people that support the Biden campaign and the current popular Democratic ideas, and then mixed in throughout the makeup of the people are the other half of the country. The people who support the Trump campaign and the current popular views of the Republican Party. The thing is, you could bet these two vehemently opposed sides will continue to clash on both a small and large scale. And one side believes these elections were riddled with various voter fraud instances, whether it's finding large amounts of last-minute ballots or the deceased voting, ballot machine glitches, people voting more than once, and also the fact that 12 states had mail-in voting available due to voting during the pandemic. So that is quite a few chances to botch a ballot count, not including any deliberate scheme to the voter tally. And it doesn't matter which side of the political playground you're on. If there's a question of the validity of our great election process in the minds of at least half of the American people out there, will have lost faith in our system, and a lot of Americans will feel jaded with a drop in morale and patriotism. And this situation will call to question the fundamental integrity of our democracy as we know it. Don't think Biden's going to come into power and suddenly COVID-19's going to magically go away either. The American people have been walking on eggshells for the last 4 years, just cringing while Trump evades taking on the country's problems, with a guess who mentality, with irrational decisions made with a roll of the dice and see what happens approach. Well, understand the anxiety and stress and animosity we went through has caused societal trauma. And let's not forget, we can see the return of TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, in 4 more years. Remember, Trump can still serve another term, And you can bet that he's going to be raising funds and getting donations right after Biden is sworn in on January 20th or January 21st. The rule is if January 20th falls on a Sunday, it'll be the 21st instead. And he will be rallying his maskless troops. Trust me, he will be campaigning throughout the whole 4 years of the Biden campaign. Trump and his supporters are going to be a stumbling block every step of the way as these two diametrically opposed worlds collide. In my Marking Up the Wrong Beast video, I talked about the 3.5 hour long pandemic tabletop exercise on October 18th, 2019, simulating a global outbreak of a novel zoonotic coronavirus transmitted from bats to pigs to people. This event was put on by the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, the World Economic Forum, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So we have an exercise of a SARS-like virus in October of 2019. Then bam, we have the announcement of the coronavirus 2 months later in December of 2019. Well, guess what, guys? They did it again. They laid out what was going to happen. It wasn't reported and picked up by the mainstream media. Then bam! Whatever event or disaster simulation exercise they were running happens to just miraculously take place. Well, here we go, guys. Hold on to your seats for this one. In June of 2020, the Transition Integrity Project, or TIP, was a series of political scenario exercises in the United States. It involved over 100 current and former senior government and campaign leaders, academics, journalists, polling experts, and former both federal and state officials. They say the purpose of the Transition Integrity Project is to identify risks to a free, fair, and peaceful 2020 election. Co-founder of the TIP project, Rosa Brooks, who served under the Obama administration as counselor to the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, Michelle Flournoy. Rosa Brooks is also a professor of constitutional and international law and national security at the Georgetown School of Law. In June of 2020, they did a political war game of sorts to try and simulate what could happen after the election. As the over 100 bipartisan experts role-played with veteran Democrats as the Biden camp and veteran Republicans as the Trump team, with 4 simulation scenarios: a Biden victory, a narrow Biden win, an intermediate result like in 2000's election, and a narrow Trump victory. And note that in every scenario but a massive Biden win, things went terribly wrong. They said, and I quote, "We anticipate lawsuits, divergent media narratives, attempts to stop the counting of ballots, and protests, drawing people from both sides." The TIP project writes in a post-exercise report summarizing their findings, quote, "The potential for violent conflict is high, particularly since Trump encourages his supporters to take up arms." Rosa Brooks, co-founder of the Transition Integrity Project, also held a war game based on what President Trump told Fox News around June of 2020, that he might not accept the election results in November. These exercises retired Colonel Larry Wilkerson said in an interview about the use of the military in protests against police brutality, he revealed he is currently, in June of 2020, that he is part of two groups devoted to protecting the November 2020 elections: the National Task Force on Election Crises and the aforementioned TIP project about the fraudulent election, and the War Game tabletop exercises, which co-founder of the TIP project, Rosa Brooks, said, quote, "I think a lot of people have been wondering in the back of their minds for a few years now, what would Donald Trump do if he lost? Would he leave? Or is he the kind of guy who would say, the election was stolen. I actually won. It's fake news that I lost." I'm saying. And that's how the TIP project was born. In autumn of 2019, while Brooks was at a big DC dinner where these elite members of this what if scenario exercise, the Transition Integrity Project, some of its members included Michael Steele, former chairman of the Republican National Committee, or the RNC, John Podesta, who has worked for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in very senior levels, former governor of Michigan Jennifer Granholm, Democratic consultant Donna Brazile. They had varied journalists like conservative journalist Bill Kristol on the what if Trump side. And they had Republican political consultants and a couple of former Republican and Democratic members of Congress, plus people who had worked for big tech companies. They are trying to go to all the participants to see if they are willing to have their name publicly connected to the TIP project. So with the existence of these projects in what are commonly called tabletop exercises or gain of function exercises, so basically the elite gives us our now trending possible choices for a future. And we go with the choice and direction they want. With these projects comes iron fist decisions and regulations. We had Event 201 in October of 2019 about a pandemic with a SARS-based virus in December. Then in December 2019, the coronavirus is announced. In the TIP project and War Game hypothetical, it says, what if President Trump won't concede? And how there will be ballot fraud and many legal lawsuits involving recounts or to halt ballot counting. The Transition Integrity Project happened in June of 2020. And 5 months later, we have taking place in our reality the manifestation of what they chose to happen. And this is only a couple of examples. There are plenty more of these types of projects dreamt up by someone with a political science degree. Dr. Fauci was saying in an interview talking about how people in England are like the American people. They don't like to be told what to do. With all the COVID rules and guidelines coming down and constantly fluctuating and changing, he then went on to say, quote, "This is the time to do what you're told." Plus, NBC Chicago reported on September 10th, 2020, along with many other news groups, that hackers that work for Russia, China, and Iran had substantially escalated their attacks, coinciding around the U.S. presidential race. Tom Burt, Microsoft's vice president of customer security and trust, and the same day the story broke, Burt wrote in a blog that Microsoft's cybersecurity experts had recently seen an uptick in hackers targeting campaigns. Burt wrote in the blog, quote, "In recent weeks, Microsoft has detected cyber attacks targeting people and organizations involved in the upcoming presidential election." Burt wrote, "So couple that fact along with these three main countries cited in the story, Russia, China, and Iran. I'm sure there are many other countries hacking as well. And who knows, maybe finding a way to tamper with the results. It is possible. You say, you're crazy. But again, computers are controlling our election system also, so you could theoretically tap into the computer vote tally if you knew how to hack into them. Plus, it's not like most of the world's leaders wouldn't benefit if Trump is out of office, as they, for good reasons, don't like him and his bullying tactics and behavior, with all his encounters turning into a middle school adolescent cut-down fight with the insults and name-callings. But my point is, don't think we're safe now, people, because Donald Trump's gone. First of all, with all this weird stuff installing the whole transition of power and blatantly calling the election a fraud and the lawsuits for actions in certain states around the country. But remember, Trump's not gone yet, and the master of the unexplained and unpredictable behavior could still do something majorly stupid to really make the end of 2020 the worst part of the year. And like I said, even if Trump does concede, he'll be back for another shot at the White House in 4 more years with a vengeance, and he will be around in the meantime also, stealing headlines and stirring things up, trust me. Plus, don't forget, his kids will be running also, so his legacy will live on. Like it says in the book of Revelation about what happens before the end of the world, with the 7 trumpets that are sounded. Could those 7 trumpets being sounded as each trumpet blown by 7 angels, each trumpet showing apocalyptic events seen by John of Patmos, could these events, or could these 7 trumpets be a metaphor for 7 different Trump campaigns by various Trump family members? Possibly. Also, here on Cape Cod, a day after the Biden-Harris winning speeches on November 7th, on Sunday, November 8th, there was a 3.6 earthquake. It was downgraded from, at first, a 4.2 magnitude to a 4.0, then 3.6. The last time New England had a quake of 4.0 or stronger was, of course, in 2012, on October 16th. 2012 being the year the Mayans' calendar ended, or the end of the age. And in 2012, on July 4th, CERN finds the Higgs boson, or God particle. And then we start seeing the increases in natural disasters, such as record hurricane seasons and tornadoes, and now hitting the Cape and other areas. As the Bible puts it, there will be earthquakes in diverse places, and the animal die-offs, and wildfires, and drought and shortages and contamination. On November 18th, 1755, 30 miles off the north coast of Boston, known as the Cape Ann earthquake took place, which damaged more than 1,000 homes. The U.S. Geologic Survey, or USGS, formerly known as just the Geologic Survey, estimate the earthquake was a 6.0 to a 6.3 on the Richter scale. And let's not forget that just like after Jesus, man's Savior, was put to death, there was a giant earthquake that tore the Temple Mount in half and also tore the veil in half, which, the veil they talk about in the Bible, the veil between the natural and supernatural, that could be what CERN's doing. They're basically lessening the veil, and they're removing the veil so these entities and other supernatural creatures can come through to the natural world. So, like I said, the earthquake tore the Temple Mount in half. Well, to Trump supporters, Donald Trump is, in their brainwashed minds, is their existential savior. Okay? Now, the Biden campaign speech had these big screens with the words empathy, unity, and science. And Biden's campaign has this idea almost suggesting that the old ways of God and country and faith and America's motto, "In God We Trust," well, I just hope that this newfound trust in science, with a lot of these revelations of the science and data and the numbers and analytics of the virus and the way it's reported and not reported on, and giving credence to different ways they believe we're damaging the earth with our hand in the many changing climates that appear on the earth. Just like the brainwashed, cult-like, no-mask-wearing Trump supporter, are we just seeing the makings and sowing the seeds of an almost oppositely version of another cult of, just like Trump trusting what they're told, the Trump supporters, that you don't have to wear a mask. It's okay. To know God, no faith in anything supernatural, just the science. And if science can't explain it, we pretend it just doesn't exist. Is that what we're doing? Pretending it just doesn't exist? Hope we're not headed there in that direction. I already see people wearing hats that say trust science, and we should, with the caveat of understanding that in every scientific experiment, there are always different variables and conditions and newfound evidence and equations that can affect your varying results and final data. We should call this increase in the storms and disasters we've seen since 2012 what it is. Forget climate change. It should be called disaster change. And God doesn't care that we're fighting and arguing with each other over our petty election. He's going to sit back and let man, through things like fracking, other geoengineering studies, and like the Russians melting ice in Antarctica with melting pellets, weather experiments, or laying chemtrails, or through giant particle accelerators like at CERN, will accelerate our own demise by mighty Mother Earth. Oh, make no mistake, she is fighting back hard, and when it's all over, she will stand victorious. Because the real battle is human beings versus Mother Earth. And I have some good news to report. Earth's biggest telescopes are reopening after major observatories largely shut down since March due to COVID-19 closures. After an astronomy magazine analysis showed that over 100 of Earth's largest telescopes shut down earlier this year, and by late March, observational astronomy had almost completely shut down. Which these telescopes are a warning system for near-Earth objects, or NEOs, like asteroids, different space rocks, and space junk, like no longer functioning satellites from possibly hitting the Earth. And the amount of NEOs has substantially increased in recent years. Luckily, world-class observatories like the Magellan Clay Telescope in Chile and other observatories in the Atacama Desert, a region to many of these best of the best telescopes we rely on. U.S. officials who manage telescopes in Hawaii and Arizona say they're also beginning to resume operations. And in Antarctica, Earth's only coronavirus-free continent, luckily have been able to, with strict protocols, has been able to continue its observing schedule and wasn't shut down. So that's good news. And lastly, I will leave you with this quote from the 32nd United States President, Franklin D. Roosevelt, which simply states that in politics, nothing happens by accident. If it happens, you can bet it was planned that way. So this is an extensive video. It took a while to bring this one out. There's been a lot of stuff going on. Everybody's busy dealing with everything because of the virus and trying to hold their lives together and everything. We have this big election, all these election problems popping up from this election. That's a big problem, but don't forget the virus is still around. People are laxing on, they're getting, worn down from all the regulations and rules, mask wearing and whatnot. They're just getting tired. And, Biden wants to do 100 days with a mask for the country. I think it's a good test to try to do, but it's going to be tough. There's going to be a lot of people that don't want to do it. And it's just going to be tough to do and enforce, really. But basically, I hope everything's going all right for everybody out there. Just keep up what you're doing, and we'll wait it out and see what happens with all this. Trump, don't think Trump is said and done. Don't think it, because this guy will be back and he's not going anywhere. He's going to be right there in the way of everything. And I'm not saying that what the Biden campaign wants to do is right, like everything they want to do is right, but I'm saying there's some things they say that are good, but then there's scarier things that make me think, oh, well, this could go in a bad direction. We don't know what's going to happen, but one thing we can be sure of is that we'll be, hanging on the edge of our seats waiting to see what's going to happen, because so we got Trump out of office as far as we know. So that unpredictability that he brought to the office, is not quite there. We have a more older and frailer man in charge. nobody's indestructible and lives forever, so he's gonna have typical issues that older people have. But this could be good. I mean, I like how it's calming down everybody. The anxiety level's going down a little, but I think it's a false calming down of people because, like I said, he's got plans too. Biden has plans, and Harris is whispering in his ear all kinds of stuff, and they have agendas and plans that they want to do. And be careful. A lot of leaders, and they've been talking about it ever since back when Hillary was running, of the Great Reset. Well, we're seeing. I would argue that we're already seeing the Great Reset. We don't know, like again, if this virus was part of the Great Reset uh, brought out to us by man to essentially break everything down and destroy stuff and destroy as much as we can. You have the people destroying statues, um, trying to change the past and change history. You can't do that. That's insane. I would say that's pantomime to what actually ISIS and various terrorist organizations are doing when they're tearing down religious icons and statues, and people are just frustrated, and they don't know what to do. So when they don't know what to do, they either don't do anything or they do something uncontrollable or outrageous. So that's where we're at with this. These humans, they don't know better, and like Jesus said to the Father, "Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do." When he was on the cross, when he was being crucified. So just hang in there, be safe, be strong, keep your guard up because we don't know what's going to happen here. This is just a series of events. 2020 has been a very, very dismal year, but this is the reality we're in, guys. So get used to it. There's no avoiding it. You can't cancel out history and cancel out our past. We've done what we've done. This country has made mistakes like every other country and every other people. So in civilizations. So be safe. Do what they tell you. If you have to wear a mask, you got to wear a mask. You got to follow the rules because that's only going to get you singled out and in trouble. So